We would like to start the masterclass with Werner Herzog. You already met him. He's here with us. I'm very honored and pleased to welcome him. I think this is a very important moment for this edition. As you know, we really believe in this moment of transmission of knowledge, of a true moment of cinema. This is also one of the reasons why Werner Herzog accepted to be here with us. We don't have much time. I just want to thank a lot Mr. Herzog to be with us, and I'll let you start. And I also would like to thank Grazia Paganelli for moderating and introducing the panel and the masterclass. Thanks very much.
Grazie di essere qui, vi prego di essere veloci nel prendere posto. La prima domanda che vorrei porre a Werner Herzog riguarda proprio i film che abbiamo visto in questi giorni. Ieri e l'altro ieri abbiamo visto gli ultimi 4 episodi di Death Row. E vedendo questi film mi sono resa conto ancora una volta, ancora di più, del fatto che il principale, il punto di partenza e il punto d'arrivo di ogni film, fin dai primissimi film, è l'analisi, la comprensione dell'animo umano, sia che si sia sulle pendici di un vulcano o che ci troviamo nel braccio della morte. Lo sguardo e il punto o l'obiettivo principale dello sguardo di Werner Herzog è proprio la comprensione dell'animo umano. Questo è stato realizzato negli anni sia, diciamo così, convenzionalmente nel cinema di finzione sia nel cinema documentario. Ecco, la mia domanda è proprio questa: come si usa il documentario e la finzione a partire da un punto così profondo di partenza?
Well, I do understand that we should talk a little bit more about documentaries and feature films. There has been quite a bit of request for going into documentary filmmaking, and you do know that I'm not an advocate of cinema verite. Cinema verite has a fundamental misunderstanding, as if facts constituted truth. Facts do not constitute truth per se. It's something else, and I've always looked for something different, and I have been staging documentaries, I have been inventive in documentaries, I have done casting in documentaries, and I would like to show right away an example about casting. Can you get ready, but we won't show it immediately. I was in Antarctica and sent down there, and I had exactly 4 weeks or 5 weeks to shoot, and I had to come back with a film. There's something with the microphone that doesn't function. 1, 2, 3, this might be better. I'm standing up because otherwise I do not see you. Louder, okay, I'll try it, but I cannot scream at you. It's a question of the sound people back there. Is it okay? Okay. So it has a lot to do with casting. It begins like that, and it's like in a feature film. I'll show you one short excerpt of a welder that I met in Antarctica. I had to come back with a film. I had very little moments only to meet people. And I met one man in the cafeteria at McMurdo Station. I immediately liked him because I asked him, and he was a welder. And I have worked as a welder. I have worked the night shift as a young high school kid. I worked the night shift in order to earn my money for the first films that I made. And I immediately had some sort of a rapport with him. But after 5 minutes, he had to leave. He had to go back to work. And he immediately said, no, I won't be in a film. I'm not a movie star. Maybe this works better, thank you. So he said, I'm not a movie star. I'm not going to be in a film. And I had the feeling I didn't have the right contact with him yet. And all of a sudden I sensed, and you have to develop this kind of sensibility, I sensed that I should not shake his hand. When he stood up, I stood up, and I turned sideways, and he, apparently anticipating what I was going to do, I elbowed him, and he touched my elbow with his elbow, and we were in business. I said to him, in half an hour I'm going to meet you at your shop. And so that was casting, but how I convinced him to come there was because I touched elbows. Second thing, I let him do things. He has some very unusual fingers and believes that it's a heritage from royal Inca and royal Aztec families that he has. And I wanted him to show that, and I asked him because he was very proud of that. And then I leave him alone. All of a sudden I don't ask anything anymore, and he doesn't know what to do. And moments like that, when he's lost and just frozen in a pose, all of a sudden bring the audience directly onto his side. So we start to side with him. And this is also a very, very important question for making films, not only feature films. How do you introduce your character? How do you, as an audience, create something with a person that immediately captivates you? Grazia, can we show, yes, Encounters at the End of the World? And his name is, yes. We soon returned to the prosaic world of today's McMurdo. David Pacheco works in maintenance and construction as a journeyman plumber. He prides himself on his heritage. He is part Apache, but has claims to yet another lineage.
It's funny, but I'm revealing my hands, and they are very distinct. And I was told by my doctor who operated me that it is from the Aztec and the Incas royal family. An anthropologist told me that, and one of our daughters is very similar, but everywhere I go, I try to find somebody, see? And I can turn it around too if you want to see it this way. It's very distinct, the line here. And I was at awe when they told me it was from the royal family of the Indians.
When you work, with which fingers do you work best or point best?
I don't know if I should say this, it's funny, but in school I used to not reach the chalkboard with this, so I used to point with this. And they called my father in and said that I was being a bad boy, but I still have the habit of pointing like that. I have a long rib cage. He could not find the gallbladder. I have a long rib cage like the Aztecs used to have, I guess. And if you can come to Antarctica, please do. Plus, be aware of global warming, it's real. I'm a green person. I'm as green as I can be. I build adobe homes, solar homes. I'm a contractor back home too, but it's so hard for a small minority to make it. But en el nombre de Dios, buenos días les dé Dios. Spirit, the fire of my ancestors.
So sometimes it is good just to leave your character alone, and nobody can predict what is going to happen next, and sometimes these moments are very telling and very beautiful, and I like to do things like this. But I would like to show you something else, the opening of a film, just to see how ingenious it can be to introduce your leading character. It's from Viva Zapata. What is the number? 41. It's one of my favorite films, and Marlon Brando plays Emiliano Zapata. And the way the leading character is introduced in the film is absolutely wonderful. It cannot get any better. So I would like to show you this, and then I would like to hand over questions to you.
Who had your paper? Right here.
So that's what a great beginning is. I love this film, and it can't get any better. I've never seen a better introduction of a character in any film I've ever seen. I would like to hear your questions, your opinions, perspectives, obstacles that you have, and I try to address them. Who would dare to ask first? There seems to be someone over there. Can we have a microphone here, please? Just 1 second, there's a microphone coming. Yes, yeah.
Thank you. I just would like to know about something about Fitzcarraldo, the difficulties you find in jungle.
Can you repeat it? What did I find in the jungle?
No, I mean, sorry, in Fitzcarraldo,
yes.
The difficulties you find, difficulties you find that country.
My difficulties?
Where the ship is. I went there.
Yes, a ship
I saw your ship, which is still there. It was still there.
Well, there were 2 ships. In fact, I built 2 identical twins, because one ship had to go over the mountain and the other ship was traveling meanwhile, and we did traveling shots, and the other ship had to go through the rapids. And we had to reckon that this ship might sink, because there are very, very violent rapids, and the ship accelerates and crashes into the rocks. And it's a very, very big monster of a ship. And we filmed that. And of course, it was evident we could lose this ship. What happened, the ship ran aground right outside of the rapids. And we desperately tried to get it out from the sandbank, because the water level kept lowering and getting lower and lower. And we knew if we didn't get it off this sandbank, we had to wait 6 more months until the next rainy season came. And we had 3 cameras on board, and 1 camera was on a rock along the rapids. And Rainer Klausmann, one of the cinematographers of the film, he must be here. Rainer, where are you? Can you give us a shout? Okay, here he is. What happened is we were frantically trying to rescue the ship, and some people left, and we had something like 3 hours to go back to our camp, and we were all exhausted. Some people were injured. The other cinematographer, Thomas Mauch, had his hand split apart between the 2 last fingers all the way deep into the hand, and we had to stitch him. And Klausmann had a camera somehow tied with ropes to a rock and he was somehow secured with a rope. And so we had an operation to do on Thomas Mauch, and there was a lot of turmoil in the camp. And in the morning, when we had breakfast, I looked around and I said, "Where's Klausmann? Has anyone seen Bubu Klausmann?" And we looked at each other, and it dawned on us we had forgotten him. We had forgotten him on this rock. So the afternoon, the entire night, it took us another half a day until we reached him and took him out. That was 30 years ago, and I think he has forgiven me meanwhile. But these things are happening. These things are happening, and you have to be aware that you are doing something which is not a studio production. The same cameraman, Rainer Klausmann, got his part of a toe bitten away by a piranha, and it took 4 or 5 weeks, which were hard for him because he only could walk on crutches. So all these things happen during a production like that, and nobody was really in the culture of complaint. So, but it's not easy to move a ship over a mountain. It has never been done before, so there was no need for doing that. But it was a need for our collective dreams. Yeah, there's somebody here in front. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it was more a question regarding your career in general and your approach of each movies, because it seems from Aguirre to Bad Lieutenant that many of your characters, and I speak more about fictions, but it seems also in documentaries, they all have a certain kind of madness in them. So is it that you start your movies with a specific character and then you try to develop a story around it, or if it's systematic, or is it more the stories and then, because I know it's your kind of characters that they just appeared by themselves, or which is the first, the story or the character?
Yes, I've understood. Most of the times it's a story. And sometimes it's not even a story, but one central image, a central image of moving a ship over a mountain. So that, and all of a sudden a story is present. It comes at me from one moment to the next, and I can see it as if I was sitting in front of a screen. And casting comes later. And the casting in Fitzcarraldo was Jason Robards and Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. And halfway in the film, Jason Robards became so ill that he had to be flown back to the United States, and his doctors would not allow him to return to the jungle. So I had to start all over again, and I had 2 choices left. One was Kinski. I never thought Kinski could do it, because Kinski is like a racehorse that can run 1 mile and then collapses. But here in this case, we had 15 miles to go. And to keep him on his feet and keep him moving, that was a real difficulty. The next choice, if Kinski hadn't done it, would have been myself. I would have played Fitzcarraldo. And I would have been not bad at all, because I can do such a thing, although Kinski was certainly better than I would have been. So it's normally the story is there, and it has to be filled with a person. In very, very rare cases, there was an actor first, like in The Wild Blue Yonder, Brad Dourif. I wanted to have a strange, failed alien, and I knew I had to build it around Brad Dourif. But that's one of the rare exceptions. There was some here. Okay, yeah.
Mike was very close to my face. Cinema has survived so many technological changes, from sound through television and now with the internet. And as a young filmmaker, I was wondering, what do you think, how does cinema stay relevant in an era where everyone has the means of production in their pocket and cell phones and things like that?
Well, that's an important question that's coming at you in your generation, because there are, I think, 2 billion, 2,000 million or 3,000 million people in the world who have cell phones, and all of them can make photos. All of them can shoot. You can shoot a feature film on your cell phone if you want to do that. And the internet is spread out into everywhere. So you have to find your own means. You have to find your new outlets for distribution. And I'm right in the middle of discovering it, because I just made a film which was released 6 days ago, and it goes straight to the internet, YouTube, and it goes to 40,000 high schools in the United States. Completely new terrain. And you have to be daring enough to test it, to try it. You have to somehow prevail. In my case, with a film about texting and driving, the title of the film is From 1 Second to the Next, has had 1.7 million viewers on YouTube in 6 days. So it's all of a sudden it functions, but it functions only because you have to offer something that has great substance and great caliber. Then it doesn't matter whether you are in a big movie theater, or whether you are showing it on YouTube, or whether you distribute it on DVDs. You have to be able to articulate something that no one else could have articulated. So try to stick to your own vision. Try to be bold enough just to do what you see clearly, and follow that. Follow your vision. And the ways of technical means of how to film it, whether you film it on your cell phone or whether you film it on 35mm celluloid, it does not matter anymore. It does not matter. The evolution of technical tools is very vehement, and it's very interesting to see it, and it's interesting to see that your generation can make films, let's say a feature film for $10,000. Today, there's no excuse anymore that the producers and the studios and the film subsidies and so are stupid. Yes, they're always stupid. They're always bureaucratic. Money has two qualities. It's number one, it's cowardly, and number two, it is stupid. So you have to roll up your sleeves. You have to roll up your sleeves and just earn $10,000 and then make a feature film. There's no excuse anymore. And there's no, would never accept any complaint from anyone. You have to dismiss all this culture of complaint that you hear everywhere. Please, yeah.
Well, it's maybe a silly question, but since you began talking about casting, would you please talk a little bit about your involvement in acting jobs recently, like you did in Incident at Loch Ness or in Jack Reacher?
Well, Incidents of Loch Ness is just a hoax upon a hoax upon a hoax. And there was a paid, people still believe that it was my real story, but it was all scripted by Zach Penn, a fine writer and a very good director as well. And Jack Reacher, it was a specific case because they had a couple of bad guys who are yelling and fighting with their fists, and they all have big guns and they open fire very quickly. They just come and shoot. But they needed somebody who was dangerous, who looked dangerous before he even spoke. And they tested quite a few well-known actors, and none of them was really scary without saying anything. So Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, the producer and the star in the film, they came upon me because they had seen a film, I believe it was a film by Harmony Korine, Julian Donkey Boy. And in Julian Donkey Boy, I'm completely dysfunctional and hostile and vile and debased, and I was good at that. So, and they hired me, they paid me well for being scary, and that was all they needed. And I am frightening, and on screen I can be very frightening, and it comes very easily to me. It's not a big deal to act like that. So on camera, I can slip into a completely different persona. And why do I do it? Because I love everything that has to do with cinema. And it means directing, writing a screenplay, distributing it, editing, creating music, acting, whatever it is, I love it all. Can we have the microphone a little bit more over to that side? But wherever it is. Yeah, okay. Is the microphone there? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hello. In the meantime, I have 3 different points. The first thing is just what you just mentioned, that I find it very impressive to feel the passion you have for your work, and also just that I have the impression that you have really trust to your actors and give them space and just let them also have their space. And this is something very important and very precious, I think, for the work as an actor. And it's not always like this. So this is one thing I wanted to say. Or do you agree?
Well, yes, sure, I have to agree, because it took me quite a while until I found my own voice. I mean, my cinema voice, and I found it through a long procedure through documentaries where I started to speak my own commentary. Very notably in Grizzly Man, for example, very notably in Cave of Forgotten Dreams, some other films. And somehow it caught on, and I became even a guest character at The Simpsons show. Yeah, well, it sounds funny, but it's my apotheosis in American popular culture. So and I took it with great respect. By the way, I did not even know that The Simpsons were moving and talking. I had seen them only in newspapers printed. I do not see much television, and I said to them, when they invited me to speak apart, I said, you are joking, because The Simpsons are not speaking, they are printed. And they couldn't believe it. They said, we are 22 years now in business. Since 22 years we are showing The Simpsons on a weekly basis. And I said, I don't believe it. Can you send me some DVDs so that I can really verify it, and I can find out how much the cartoon voice has to be. So they still believe I'm joking about them, but I'm not. I had no idea that they were talking. So, but back to your question, yes, you have to find your own voice. You have to find your own way to, and it's not a physical voice. It's also something that you get across on a screen. Even if your voice is not in it, your person is in what you are showing on screen, in a way. The caliber of a person is always visible on screen in some form or the other.
I would have 2 other questions. May I keep on going just fast? The second one is recording what you said, that it doesn't matter anymore if we shoot now a film on 35 or in digital. But what I'm wondering is about the time you spend. Like, then when you're on video, you don't have the rushes in the evening. I mean, do you give your work as much time that you did when you work with 35 millimeters, for example, or do you think also the rhythm has changed when you work?
Well, it doesn't really matter whether I'm shooting on celluloid. I still try to film on celluloid as long as I can. Certain films I cannot shoot on celluloid, like Death Row. I have to roll the camera for 50 minutes because that's all the time I have. Or in Antarctica, I cannot use celluloid because it's so cold that the celluloid, the film itself, does not bend properly anymore, and it breaks like uncooked spaghetti. So you would need a lot of crew members to keep your film warm. So of course then it's prohibitive. Shooting in 3D, you can do it only digitally. So I switch over into digital. And each film takes the time it needs. but sometimes there are constrictions. The cave film, I was allowed 6 days of shooting, but only 4 hours per day. I was only allowed 3 people with me. I was only allowed to move along a 60 centimeter wide metal walkway. I was only allowed to use some small, little bit larger than this here, 2 light panels that had to be moved, nothing else. And so of course you have to live with it, and you shoot the film then in 6 days, in 4 hours, work days. Or on death row you have 50 minutes, 50 minutes. And you have to do most of the film, the central piece in these 50 minutes. And you have to learn how to cope with it. But each film takes its appropriate time. In fact, today I'm working much faster than before. I've always written very fast. I've never written more than 5 days on a screenplay because I see an entire film as if I were sitting in a projection, and I just write down what they talk and what they do. Editing, I'm much faster today because with digital editing I can edit as fast as I can think, almost. So Grizzly Man was edited in 9 days. My Son, What Have You Done was edited in 5 days, a feature film. Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans was edited. I delivered the final film 3 weeks after I finished shooting. So it goes quickly. And filming itself, I do not spend much time. I do the essentials, and everybody is nervous on the set. On the film set of Bad Lieutenant, I was asked, why don't you shoot coverage? I took my assistant to the side and said, what do they mean by coverage? I have coverage for my car, liability if my passenger is injured and he's covered up to $250,000 of bodily damage. So what is coverage? And he said, it's a shot from here, and a shot ultra close on the eyes, and a shot from a Zeppelin, and a shot this, and a shot. And I said, I don't need it. I shoot what I need for the screen. And normally my shooting days were over at 2 p.m., at 3 p.m., not 1 single hour overtime, never, not 1 hour. And on the second day when I was shooting and everybody was complaining about coverage, Nicolas Cage all of a sudden asked for silence. He said, silence, can I say something? And I said, Nicolas, go ahead. And he said to everyone, to the crew that assembled, he said to them, finally somebody who knows what he's doing, and then walked away. And I felt very proud of that, yes. So it somehow silenced the kind of fear. And there's always fear on a set. And can I extend your question? I'm going beyond your question, but I would like to say it. You have to take control of your set. Whatever you do, you have to take control, which means, in my case, wherever the camera is the center of everything, even if the camera is not rolling and we are setting lights in. So no walkie-talkies within 30 meters. Of course, you need walkie-talkies to call the truck and bring in tracks for a dolly. No cell phones. There are no cell phones. If you make a cell phone call, you have to move 100 meters away from wherever the camera is located. That's always the epicenter. So all of a sudden you have a very focused set. And I've seen sets like Jack Reacher where you have 240 people on the set, 20 of them are working, 220 are sitting around, and everyone on the cell phone. Everyone. Not one who is not on a cell phone. So, but if it had been my set, I would have asked them 100 meters away. And for example, it's a very, very dangerous thing to have the so-called video village or video output so that everybody can see what you are filming. Avoid it, shut it down. throw it into the next river and just do your filming and make people focus on what is going on. You have an actor who is working and acting as close as from me to the first row here, or even closer. And people who are that close, they all stare at a monitor. And it gives a very false, very strange feel good feeling of security. And it does not function. It's always very, very, very misleading. So you have to avoid it. In my case, I personally always do the slate board because I want to be the last one to move out between the actors on one side and the technical apparatus on the other side. That means camera, sound, lights, dolly, whatever there is. So I'm the last one who moves out, and then things are rolling. So it's a very, very important thing that you don't have to be a dictator. Everybody will understand that there shouldn't be cell phone calls while you are filming or while you are preparing. Everybody will understand it. There's nothing capricious about it. So it's very, very essential how you do it from day one on.
Can I just,
Yeah.
the last question?
Yes.
Thank you. This is a question I wanted to ask you from the first moment I saw Grizzly Man in theaters. And it is connected to the issue of intimacy. That is a central fil rouge in your cinema. What is the moment where you decide that, and in Grizzly Man it happens when you are hearing the tape, that you stop? I think it's very interesting how you related intimacy and power. Thanks.
Well, it's an essential, fundamental question of filmmaking. You have to settle your ethical boundaries way before you start shooting. In this case, Grizzly Man, it was known to the media and the general public that there was a videotape of the last 6 minutes of when Timothy Treadwell and his girlfriend were attacked and eaten by a bear. And it was actually only the audio, because the attack came so violently that apparently the girlfriend of Treadwell, Amy Huguenard, switched on the camera, had no time to take the lens cap off it, and she dropped the camera inside the tent, and it was found inside a crushed tent. Everybody insisted that I had to show this or make it available for audiences. Everybody wanted me to address it. I said, I have no idea what's on this tape. And in order to satisfy your needs, I can film myself listening to it, but you only see me from behind. And you see the face of the woman who owns this tape now, and was a very close friend and collaborator of Timothy Treadwell. Now, what I heard was so horrifying that it was clear only over my dead body I would make it public, because there's a dignity that must not be touched, and it's the dignity of a person's death, and it's also the privacy of death, and you just don't touch it. So, but you have to make up your mind beforehand. You cannot, those things take time, and they take experience in life, and you should rather gain experience in life, and you will, I advise everybody who is going into filmmaking, don't spend your time in film schools. If you travel on foot for 4 months, it's better than 4 years in film school. And you really have somehow understood what the world is all about. So it's experience, it's many other things. Reading, for example, read a lot, and it gives you different perspectives, different, you enter in a different way of thinking and experiencing. So that's another thing, or doing essential things like raising children, for example, is something which is kind of essential, and those who have done it are normally better grounded in reality, and you have to, otherwise it's not going to function. Wherever. The microphone has to decide where to go. Where's the young lady with the microphone? Just go ahead. Ah, yeah, there's a young man here in Swiss.
So just 2 questions about documentary again.
Yes.
You were talking about the writing process that takes 5 days. It's also for documentary that you write screenplays beforehand? That's
no,
the first question.
I don't write for documentaries.
Not at all.
Sometimes I do it for if I have to win over the finances of a TV station, for example. Then I would grudgingly write 5 pages an exposé, but I never really follow what I've written. It only is fraudulent. It's forgery, and it has a certain purpose.
And the other question, do you show the rushes to your protagonist in documentary or not at all? The images during the process of the...
No, in a documentary it's even worse. Never show anything to anyone in a documentary. They will become self-conscious, and they will freak out, and they will think, oh, the light on me was bad, and oh, my hairdo was not good enough, and my God, I spoke too fast, or my God, and so never, ever, ever, ever do that. And if you have to work with a man like Kinski, never show him a second of the footage, because he's gonna completely freak out. Yes.
Hello. How do you choose a subject to make a movie, especially in a documentary? How do you challenge which movie you need to make still?
Well, I've never had a career. I never had a life where I would make a choice in thinking, what do I do next? They come wildly at me. Most of the time the projects stumble into me. And a very good example would be Grizzly Man. I was at a producer's office who was very kind with me, helped me finding some partners, and I had never met him before in my life. And I paid him a visit at his office, which was only 15 minutes away from where I live. And he showed me his facilities. We sat at the table, and I had some 10 minutes of friendly talk with him. And when I got up, and I swear to God, I was not looking for a movie, not for a subject of a movie. I noticed that my car keys were somewhere on the table. I had misplaced them. And I look at the table, and I look for my car keys. I was not looking for a movie. I was looking for my car keys. And he thought that I spotted something on this messy table, and shoves a paper across and says, read this. We are doing a very interesting film. So normally I do not read that stuff, but I went home, read it, and 10 minutes later I was back. It was clear, this is big. This is so big that I have to try to do this. So I asked cautiously, how far is the film? Yeah, they have to start in 10 days, because the salmon run had already begun in the rivers, and the bear population, the density is enormously high at that time. And then finally I asked, and you have to listen very carefully now, I asked who is directing the film. And he said, I'm kind of directing the movie. But he said, kind of. And I knew he was not very sure. And I mustered my worst German accent that I could, and I pumped my hand towards him, and I said to him, no, I will direct this movie now. And he was so stunned that he grabbed my hand, and I said, we are in business now. I'm doing it now, and I did it. So, in other words, very often the films are just coming at me wildly, and I deal with the ones that come with the most vehemence at me. And only when there's something really vehement, I do it. including the film that I'm going to show tomorrow as well, from 1 second to the next. I was invited to do it by AT&T, a telephone provider in the States, and it's about texting and driving and catastrophic accidents that happen. And I said, yes, I would like to do it because there is a shift in civilization which is massive. Something vehement is happening, which means when you look at the schoolyard, the teenage girls are sitting around, they can speak easily to each other, and they're all texting. And you see people in restaurants, families in restaurants, the children and the parents, they're all texting. They do not speak to each other, they text. And there was one case, for example, where a young man, I couldn't film him because prison authorities did not allow me, a young man texted and was distracted, looked down and hits a bicycle and kills a young boy on a bicycle. And now comes this, and this is a real shift in paradigm. He was texting to his girlfriend who was sitting next to him in the same car. So, and I understood that there is something of enormous magnitude, something of enormous consequences coming at us. And I said, yes, I'll tackle it. It was just sheer curiosity because of the magnitude what we can observe right now. Okay, de nada.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, I'm here.
Where are you?
I'm here. Up here.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I see you now, so sorry.
We finally get you. Okay, yesterday night we saw Feldman, and you didn't show the defense. In the other three film, we could also have the expression of the defense. In Feldman, you didn't.
Yes, there was a defense attorney. It's an African-American lady who is a defense attorney for him.
And you didn't have the opportunity to...
I always have a defensive voice.
Okay.
In my films. I do believe there was one voice speaking for him. But in some cases, when a perpetrator admits proudly that he killed 2 truckers, you mean that case?
Yes.
So if he proudly admits it, and there are even video footage of his second killing, there's no doubt that he that he's guilty. He shouldn't be executed. That's another side of the story. But even in this case, I would have one voice speaking in his defense.
Okay. And otherwise, I would like to thank you for all your work. I follow you since the beginning of the 70s, and it meant a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, very kind of you.
And one more thing. This, I want to say it in Italian.
Yes.
Grazie al nuovo direttore del festival che ci ha portato finalmente Herzog a Locarno.
Yeah. And I would like to extend what you said to Grazia Paganelli, who has tirelessly worked for many years in Torino at the Museo di Cinema, and we have to watch out because it is on the most endangered list. If we do not pay attention and if we are not supporting this most wonderful museum of cinema, it may disappear. So, and I thank Grazia a lot for what she has done. I would like to, before we go into more questions, I would like to show you a segment from Bells of the Deep. Again, casting. I choose Jesus Christ in Siberia. There were about 104 Jesuses roaming Siberia. And this one I liked most. And what is beautiful about him, of course, is his outlook. He used to be a corrupt policeman and gave it up and became a painter. Very interesting painter, by the way. Gave that up and he found his calling and he believes that he's Jesus Christ and he walks in his regular costume. And I said I would like to have him outside this is the Yenisei River in Siberia. And I said to him, I need this white water and it should look, and he said, why do you want to put me there? And I said, it has to look like the Lake of Galilee. And he said, I understand you as an artist. And he was very proud that I took him. And I asked him, and now this is staged, it's staged, I asked him, could you, as Jesus Christ, give a blessing to the audience that will see the film? And he said, gladly, gladly, will you please turn your camera on? And you have to watch at the end. At the end, he turns his face in profile, which I asked him to do. And I asked him not only turn your face in profile, but look over the horizon. Look high up, look slightly high over the horizon, because this gives a magnitude of you. And you also should look how I bring in the music. There's wonderful music which I had before I shot the film. I had the music already, and it's Orthodox church choir. And there's one voice, the leading voice is a basso profundo, which is 1 octave lower in pitch than a regular bass basso. And watch how I bring in the music. It's very, very interesting. And with the music and with his blessing and with his gaze, I show ice skater. There was we drove by in a bus with a team, and I stopped the bus because I saw something very beautiful. People who had drilled holes in the ice and were fishing. And to me, they all looked like pilgrims. It's a film about religion and superstition in Russia. And because of the music and because of the way I film them, they are pilgrims now. They transform into pilgrims. It's very mysterious how it functions. And then I saw an ice skater, and he was very fast, and I waved him, he wouldn't follow. Then I whistled at him, he wouldn't pay attention. Then I pretended that I had broken through the ice and needed help. All of a sudden he came and looked out whether he had to fish me out of the ice-cold water. And I said to him, sir, I would like to have you in the film. He said, fine, yes, okay, I'm a good ice skater. And I filmed it 6 times over, because he was so proud and so fast that I knew it would not fit with the rhythm of the music, which I didn't have with me, but I had it in my ear. And then a second ice skater joined. And after 5 times shooting, I said to them, gentlemen, this is still not right. You have to do it in a different way. You're not ice skating anymore. You have to be majestic. That's how you move. And the skater said to me, we have understood you. So, and it's staged and repeated and repeated and repeated until the rhythm of the movement was right. I would like to show the clip from Bells from the Deep.
Дорогие мои, чады Божии, земля является единой матерью вашей.
Dearly beloved children of God, the earth is your only mother. How foolish and ridiculous seem the sons of the one mother who inhabit all her space and yet sever their contacts, the ones unto the others, only because some were brought to earth at one place and others at another place. Verily I say unto you, a great folly hath befallen the mind of man. Take heed. The struggle of one nation to exalt itself above another nation is a sign of a disturbed mind. And heed the Father's word, which saith that everyone who exalts himself over others shall be made low. Deep sorrow furrows the brow of the Heavenly Father as he looks down upon the obstinacy of his children, especially the obstinacy of the faithful. How many wise words have been written about the faith, yet to this day nobody in his stubborn head can understand that these magnificent writings ultimately lead to these two lines: love God and love thy neighbor. But where is this love? Now the time hath come, when the word of the glorious Father is turned once more to your ears, but it is up to you to hearken to his word. May the prophecy of Isaiah not be visited once more upon you, a prophecy which firmly stated, and to this day doth continue to state, they will hear with their ears, but understand not. They will see with their eyes, but perceive not. For the hearts of these people have grown dull, and they scarcely hear with their ears, and they have closed up their eyes. Be wise then, for mankind is headed straight towards the abyss. But the people have now arrived at the place where one single path brancheth off from this ominous road and leadeth to true perfection. Sorry, that was the wrong clip, but let's find the right one. Can you see the... It's worthwhile to see the end of the film. Okay. Can we see the index? At number 6 was Bells from the Deep, maybe. Let's see the other one, maybe it's okay.
The other one, the 5?
Let's see that. 5. Let's see the other one that we haven't seen yet. Okay, let's roll it. It's actually pilgrims that are seeking the sunken city of Kitesh, which is in the soul of Russia embedded, that after countless invasions of Tatars and Huns who pillaged and burnt and raped the inhabitants of the city of Kitesh, asked for redemption. And God sent an archangel who threw the city onto the bottom of a bottomless lake. And here are pilgrims, and they are staged. You see these pilgrims crawling on ice. In fact, they were paid extras. They were both drunk from a country inn. And one of them, who is motionless at the end, you will see he looks like in deep meditation, but he had fallen asleep. Let's have a look. Maybe at the end there's a blessing of Jesus. Let's have a look. This was really thin ice, and you could only be careful. But I was there first, so they were not afraid. I'll try to fast forward it. Let's see what happens. Here, okay. Here, that one behind.
Anymore. And suddenly I heard singing. A great joy welled up within me. And
so he was not in meditation anymore. He was just asleep. Let's move on. Fast forward. Okay, here, now this is the end of the film. Let's play it.
Furthermore, I shall grant my blessing unto your mature hearts, the ones that are able to perceive the magnificent word which hath been vouchsafed unto your ears. I shall give you the strength. Be prepared to receive it, but listen attentively to your hearts. Verily, verily, I say unto you, ye shall be openly divided upon this earth into the powers of light and darkness this very year. Ye shall be divided into the wheat and the chaff. But then the harvest will begin. So hearken unto your hearts. The Lord will not leave anything undone. He maketh no mistakes. but your minds will err. Listen to your hearts, for only a blind man will fail to see the gifts of the Lord.
Отныне не узрит данного вам Богом. Так возьмите же великую благодать Отца. Будьте благословенны.
Receive the glorious blessing of the Father. Be ye blessed.
Yes, it's a good example how you stage and how you direct cinema, and I mean documentary cinema. And I've heard it so often not long ago in a big conference at a festival where there was a panel and I was on the panel, and about 300-400 filmmakers in the theater, and they were all raving about cinema verite, and that young filmmaker, young woman sitting next to me was exuberant about how she made her film, that she was only like a fly on the wall and would never interfere. And I thought, oh my God, I cannot take this any longer. And I finally grabbed the microphone and I said very loudly, I said, no, we should not be the flies on the wall, we should be the hornets that sting. We have to be directors, we have to be storytellers, we have to make documentaries on a different level. And then there was a lot of, angry voices in the audience, and everybody was somehow murmuring or shouting or whatever. And I grabbed the microphone again and I yelled out to them, Happy New Year's, losers. So what I'd like to encourage you, you have to be directors of your movies. Direct what you do, including documentaries. You are not the security camera in a bank that hopes that in 2.5 years, for 5 seconds, somebody pulls a gun and walks away without loot. So you just shouldn't do that. Yes, there's, where do we have the microphone? Maybe here?
Hello?
Yes, where is...
I have a personal question. There in Gasherbrum, there is this fascinating moment when Reinhold Messner, the great mountaineer, completely breaks down and starts to cry. And it seems you can bring out those things in people that other people can't. What's your secret?
I think there is no secret. You have to have it in you. You have to know the heart of men. And then you would do the right thing. Probably what triggered Messner to be shaken like this is that I asked him with an almost biblical term. I asked him, I say it in German, wie war es, als du deiner Mutter vors Antlitz getreten bist? He lost his younger brother and he returned home to his mother, and I said to him, how did you have to face your mother? But I said it in biblical way, vors Antlitz getreten. And he had to tell her that they had lost the younger brother. And the articulation of the question in this kind of wording, that shook him. But how do I do that? How do I organize it? I don't know. There's a very good example. Can we see the index? At the beginning of Into the Abyss, I'm speaking, it's a prologue. We have somewhere Into the Abyss. I think we didn't write it down here. I'm speaking to a chaplain who has to go to an execution. He assists during executions. And he speaks like a phony television preacher about the beauty of nature, and that he sees a squirrel at the golf course, or he sees deer, or sometimes a horse looks at him and he switches off his cell phone and how forgiving and merciful God is. Do we have it? Can I see if it's the beginning of... And it was something where I had only 14 or 15 minutes with him. He came rushing to my camera, which I had set up at the cemetery where executed men are buried, whose bodies were not claimed by family members. He comes on the set and taps on his wristwatch and he says, quick, 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 in 35 minutes I have to be in the death house. So I said, I'm Werner Herzog and I'm the one who asked you to come over. Is it okay that we position you here in front of these crosses? He said, yeah, switch it on, switch it on. So he starts to speak and then I had the feeling I have to crack the man open. He has to be broken open. And watch what I'm doing, because this is something you will never ever learn in film school nor anywhere. You have to have it. That's the very beginning of the film. Reverend, you're on duty today. Can you just think about the man whom you are going to encounter in an hour from now, less than an hour from now?
I really am going there without any expectations. I'm going there to experience what God has prepared for me, for him, for all of those involved. And I don't preconceive anything, not today. I will let that happen as it occurs, as time gets there. We have a loving, caring, forgiving, merciful God. And in time of joy, and in time of need, and time of trial or tribulation, God is always there for us. I want to make that presence to them.
And technically, when he's led to the gurney, what is your duty then?
After everything is completed, as far as the preparation, then I walk over and I stand as he has allowed me to stand. I always ask permission to be able to stand at his feet and hold his ankle. And I moved toward that position and I placed my hand on his ankle, and then that's what I do until death occurs.
And if there is no family interested in taking care of the body, the condemned men would end up right behind you?
Yes, they end up here at the state cemetery and they're buried by the state. No names on the crosses, only numbers.
Why does God allow capital punishment?
I don't know the answer. I believe that there's always a purpose why God allows things to happen. God has created so many things in this world. I play golf sometimes. I love to be on the golf course because one thing I do, I put my phone on a silent mode. I go out there sometimes by myself with no distractions, and I can see the beautiful grass. I can see the squirrels from time to time running. Sometimes the deer are running. Sometimes I look across the golf course and I see a cow or a horse, and I stop and I acknowledge life. Life. The things that God has created.
Please describe an encounter with a squirrel.
An encounter with a squirrel. I was driving the golf cart, and I was on the cart path, and I saw two squirrels. They were chasing each other, and as I was getting closer, they were running across the cart path, and I put on my brakes, and they stopped in the middle of the cart path and looked at me, and I said, how about this? If I wouldn't have stopped, I could have run over one of these squirrels. Their life would have ended. And that reminds me, the many people that I have been with on their last breath of life, and due to bad choices and mistakes in their life, their life is taken away in the moment. So life is precious, whether it's a squirrel or a human being. So I will sometimes meditate on that experience, make a little noise, and the squirrels will take off and continue their life. But I cannot do that. For someone on the gurney, I cannot stop the process for them. But I wish I could.
Yeah, all of a sudden we look deep into his heart, and my question was, tell me about an encounter with a squirrel. So I don't know how I got there, but what you see, he started to become a little bit mellow, but he regained his composure, and you have to have the wisdom of the snake. You have to be coiled up and just wait and let him speak, and you have to strike at the right moment with the right venom, with the right question, with the right move. So that's something I cannot teach you, and that's something film school cannot teach you either. But you should always try to find a way to look deep into someone. And the same thing happened with Reinhold Messner, but I don't know exactly how the situation was, because it was many years back and I do not recall it fully. Yes, maybe one or two more questions, yeah. Please hand out the microphone.
Okay. The question is, as you traveled through the abyss of the earth and of the soul, like Nosferatu, Kaspar Hauser, and Death Row, what's your view? What's your vision about good and about evil? Those two dimensions that the world always divides.
Well, I hesitate to answer your question because it goes into philosophy, and I'm not prepared to be in a confession with a priest. So I'd like to skip this question because we should be more with the practical side of what we are doing. How I think and how I feel deep inside, we can speak separately, but not in this discourse here with everyone. I would like to show one more thing where just to encourage you to do things that nobody would normally allow you to do. In the film, My Son, What Have You Done? There's a moment, of course in the film there's quite often moments of complete standstill, where everything freezes, where everything comes to holding the breath, and it's very, very strange how things happen. And if I had proposed the scene that you are just seeing right now to a studio or even to an independent movie company, one of the larger independent movie companies, they would have called security and have me sent into the next asylum or so. What is happening here is a young man, a prodigious actor, who is as an actor in a stage production of the Oresteia. He plays Orestes, who has to kill his mother on stage. And he becomes stranger and stranger, lapses in complete delirium and into some sort of insanity, and he takes 2 hostages and barricades himself at home. It's this pink home that you see here. At the end, when a SWAT team storms a house, or when he surrenders, it turns out that his 2 hostages were actually his 2 pet flamingos that were chained outside in the lawn. And you see the main character, Michael Shannon, barricaded in this house, and you hear a chorus of the Oresteia. And then the camera switches to Michael Shannon in a sort of a flashback. But since there were quite a few flashbacks already, you do not recognize it is a flashback anymore, because he picks up exactly the same sort of line that he's yelling. He yells, "The rooster, the rider of the apocalypse." And then you see him in the snow with Brad Dourif, one of my favorite actors, and he speaks about a rooster and a rider. And the story is kind of significant. Number one, what you see is the biggest tree stump on God's wide earth. It is so big that when it was felled, when this tree was cut down in 1854 or so, it was used as a dancing floor with music bands around it. And I had a midget in a tuxedo on top of this tree stump. And it's an old idea that I never could make into a film. I had actually looked out for the smallest midget in the world, whom I filmed in Even Dwarfs Started Small in an early film. And I had found the smallest horse in the world. It is only 32 centimeters high or so. And I also had found the largest rooster on God's wide earth, together with Errol Morris, who was fascinated by gigantic roosters. And there was one rooster that his name was Rolf, and he was dangerous and gigantic, and he would constantly attack. And the owner of Rolf could only defend himself with a plastic bucket and throw himself on the rooster and then singe with a blowtorch the spurs off the rooster, so he wouldn't be injured badly. And then there was an even bigger one, the offspring of Weirdo. The big rooster was Ralph, and Ralph was even more monstrous. And I had Ralph filming, and I wanted to have the tiny midget riding on the tiniest horse in the world and being chased by the largest rooster in the world around this tree stump. And the rooster would be taller than horse and rider together. I could never film it because the owner of the horse actually wouldn't give me the horse because he thought that Fred, his horse, would look ridiculous. So I could never shoot the scene, and all of a sudden a dormant motive appears in a film like this, and music starts. You have to watch out how the music starts. And the music takes over, and it goes for 2-3 minutes or so. It's a wonderful song sung by Gaetano Veloso, which was also used by Almodovar in a film, I think, I forgot the title of the film, but a fine film that he made. And then Brad Dourif and Michael Shannon freeze. They start to look out into the camera, and they hold still until the song is over, and then the film continues. So, and everybody in the film industry would immediately call security. And if you have something really big as that and troubling as that, you have to do it. Can we show it, Grazia?
Horrors of suffering and the depths of the sea teem with murderous monsters and flaming comets stab down through the sky and blasts creatures that fly and creatures that crawl and things more horrid still, like the cradle of storms. Cradle of storms. But who can describe the audacity of man, or the daring and passion of women? Stop at nothing and lead to mortal ruin. The cruel bit.
The rooster! The rider! A man on a rooster! The rider of the apocalypse! The rooster! The rider!
The rider of the apocalypse.
Oh, not the rider. It was the horse owner. The goddamn horse owner wouldn't let me have the horse.
Look, imagine it's the opposite time of the year. There's no snow. And this horse is fully grown. And this little guy would be riding this, the smallest horse in the world. And then Willard, my rooster, would be chasing him around the biggest tree on this planet.
Dicen que por las noches nomás se le iba en puro llorar. Dicen que no
Here's the
comía.
thing. The rooster would stand taller than the rider and the horse together.
God, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. It was going to be a commercial. It was going to make a bunch of money. It was going to be great.
Commercial for what?
How should I know? But it was going to be great.
La fue llamando. Ay, 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 ay. Cantaba. Ay, 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 ay.
Goes a little bit longer than that, but anyway, yeah, thank you. So, how much time do we have? I showed you this little clip because it's something essential what I do, and I would encourage you, if you have something completely troubling you and a very strong vision of something, even if it does not fully fit into the flow of the story, just tell it anyway. There are things, for example, in the Enigma of Caspar Hauser, where Caspar is dying, and the priest asks him, Caspar, is there anything you want to tell us? Do you want to lighten your heart? Do you have anything you would like to tell us? And Caspar says, yes, I want to tell you one story. But he says, I couldn't tell you the story because I only knew the beginning of the story. And it's actually a story that has troubled me for many, many years. It's a caravan in the desert. And the caravan stops because they have lost their way. And the leader of the caravan is blind, a Berber who is blind. And everybody sees mountains in the distance, but they are Fata Morganas. They are the figment of their fantasy. They are delirious. The only one who cannot be misled is a blind man, because he tastes the sand, and he, from the taste of the sand, he knows where they are. And then it would be a big, big story that would end up in the northern African city, somewhere in Algiers or in Casablanca or wherever. But I never got the story. I never had any idea how the story would really develop. It bothered me so much that I asked Bruno S., who played the part, listen to my story and tell us the story. And even if it's only the beginning of it, it makes sense that you tell it. So, in other words, even if you have some fantastic image or part of a story, don't bury it forever. Make it, activate it somewhere, in some context where it fits in. And all of a sudden, a film like My Son has much more texture. It has much more strangeness, and it has much more standstill and inner flow. There's one thing you have to be very, very careful about it when you do both documentaries or a feature film. there's a separate, a parallel story that happens and occurs in audiences. The audience sometimes anticipates and rushes ahead of your story. For example, when you have a romantic comedy, there's a separate story evolving in the collective body of an audience. We together hope, oh my God, the lovers have so many obstacles, and we hope that they kiss each other at the end, and they find each other, and they live ever happily. And we are far ahead of in our wishes, in our emotion. So you have to pay attention to the separate, to the second story, to the parallel story that occurs only in the audience. And if you do not understand this parallel story, if you do not develop a sense for it, you will never make a great film. That's my credo. So pay attention to what you are seeing in cinemas. Is there a parallel story? Is there a second, something else going on inside the audience collectively? And then all of a sudden you see something great evolving on a screen. I would like to take one last question because we have to clear the room fairly soon. Where's the microphone? Whoever has it should try.
Yeah, it's about silence, this question. In many of your documentaries, when you do interviews, we have the chance to see the subject in silence. I mean, the camera is still rolling not for 3 seconds, maybe 10, 15 seconds, and the subject is just like so, relaxed, in peace, sometimes almost mesmerized. Is something that you ask before the interview to the subject or no?
No, such a thing you cannot ask. But you have to sense it, and you have to have the nerve to sit there. And what I do, I'm right next to the camera. If Grazia were the lens, I sit there and I look with incredible intensity at the person and nod and look at them. It's a way how you look at somebody. How you, and Errol Morris is a great master, how he sits next to it, and you just want to continue talking. And in one case, Blaine Milam, there's a homicide detective, and he's a solid Texan man, and he says, I'm 38 years on the beat in this profession. And it was a murder case where a young girl, 14 months old, was tortured and murdered in a botched exorcism in a way that is unspeakable. It's beyond all description, beyond imagination, beyond everything. And he says, my 5 colleagues, I think he says, my 5 colleagues on the crime scene, they together have 100 years of expertise. And what I saw and what they saw, I've never seen in my life, and I will never see it again. And then he falls silent. And I had the nerve to wait for, I don't know, it's at least 25 seconds, which is an eternity in cinema. And then he says briefly something and falls silent again. And you have to know that a camera will never switch off. You have to trust in your cameraman, never ever switch off, never even breathe, never move, never stir, never whisper, just stand there and take the silence as it is. And then all of a sudden, the silence becomes something powerful. And it's completely and utterly unusual. And the network, for example, said to me, Werner, a movie has to go fast. And they did like this, one of the executives, snapping, has to go fast. Cut this whole thing out, the silence. And I said, no. And he said, why? And you know what I said as an answer? If I cut this silence out, I have lived in vain. So, and it's in now. Thank you very much. Yes, yes, please can you repeat those? Okay. Vielen Dank. Ja,